It's the county conversation, and this week the Kookaburra returns. Matches are abandoned for unsafe wickets. 160-year-old records are being broken, and it's tight at the top of Division 1 as a potential title showdown between Somerset and Surrey looms next week. I'm Cameron Ponsonby, and I'm joined as ever by the cricketers Nick Friend. But first, with a very, very special announcement, and the thing that always makes me happy, the chance to do an ad read. And tickets are now on sale for the 2024 Metro Bank One Day Cup Final. Me and Nick's favourite competition of all.
We'll be there. We'll be there.
You'll be there. I've actually, I didn't get the commission. I'll be watching intently from my screen at home whilst sending out tweets occasionally. So if you do see any good content that you think should be shared on the social media accounts, please do let me know. But if you want to go there in person and see the Metro Bank One Day Cup Final between Somerset and Glamorgan at Trent Bridge on Sunday, September 22nd, you can go. The last showpiece event of the English Summer sees two of the last four winners battle it out in what promises to be a thrilling encounter. Nottinghamshire's home of Trent Bridge, which has hosted cricket since the 1830s, which is almost as far back as we're going to go when talking about someone else later this episode who's broken some records, is the host venue for the fourth straight year. Tickets are priced at £24 for adults, with admission for all under 16s priced at £5. Visit tickets.trentbridge.co.uk to confirm your place now. And I'm sure there'll be some stuff in the show notes as well if you want to click a link there. Right. I'm sure that was everyone's favourite part.
Really rolled off the tongue, that, didn't it?
Oh, it's fine. I think with ad reads, people think you want it to be clinical and clean and well read. You want it to be a bit messy, a bit colloquial, a bit chatty, because it brings more attention to what they're trying to sell. That's my strategy and thought process anyway. Right, we're 2 minutes into the show. We haven't spoken about cricket. So we're going to start now. The Kookaburra, it's back. Everyone's kind of... I sometimes wonder whether things get more conversation time just because there's nothing else to talk about. And that was what I felt like was the case with the Kookaburra at the start of the year, when there wasn't quite... We weren't quite into the rounds of... like the international cricket hadn't come back. And it was a case of, right, we've got county cricket. What's going on? Why does the Kookaburra exist? Why is it used? Well, it basically is the idea that Rob Key and the England management want to try and force counties to turn to high pace and spin. They don't just want people to bowl 70 mile an hour and kind of wobble it down on green tops and nick everyone off. That is basically why it exists. And in the start of the season, it didn't go very well. It wasn't very popular. There was basically loads of runs scored. It was an unhelpful ball on unhelpful wickets, and it combined for Sam Northey scoring 335 not out at Lords. And basically people went, this was naff. However, this time around, it's kind of served its purpose. We've had a very entertaining round of county championship fixtures. There's used in the one just gone. The Kookaburra will be used in one more next week. And if you look at it, especially in the terms of spinners, you had Farhan Ahmed more on him later taking a 10-wicket haul. Jack Leach taking a 10-wicket haul. Jack Carson taking a 10-wicket haul. Will Jack 7-for. Don Best 7-for. Amar Verdi having a bowl in the county championship for the first time in 3 years, playing an absolute blinder for Worcestershire in their victory over Essex. So, Nick Friend, are people happy? Do we now like the Kookaburra? Or is that no longer the case? What's the assessment? What's the mood in the world?
It's everyone's second favourite ball.
That is true.
Apart from the old Tiflex lovers out there.
Okay.
No, I don't think people are happy. But I do think, as you said there, I think it... look, this has been an experiment over the last 2 seasons to try and essentially reach a point where there's a data set for where it works best. If you're going to, if it works, for what it works for, when it works, why it works, etc. And I think what we learned at the start of the season was that it doesn't really work in April after a wet spring on, lush outfields, soft pitches with a ball that goes notoriously soft very early. As you said, it created sort of a maelstrom of some quite awful games of cricket, but did also, show off Sam Cook particularly as someone who can bowl with it and likes bowling with it. And obviously, I guess you'd like to think a year down the line, if it was to be used in April again, there's no suggestion explicitly that it will, that people will be better for it, having had this year. But I think so. They've now used it in all 3 parts of summer, right? They've used it in April, they've used it in the run-in, and they've used it last year in the sort of June, July sort of package. And what's clear is that it works best when conditions are dry enough that spin can come into the game, and that actually you know there are conditions that you can create results in other ways with, and that happened last year. So with in those rounds, remember Liam Dawson taking a 12-wicket haul for Hampshire against Middlesex on a pitch that had been sort of doctored to suit spin, given what they knew was going to happen with the ball. Was when Shoaib Bashir came to the attention as well. He got a really long ball for Somerset, and all those names you mentioned there this time round as well. And in actual fact, we had 5 wins out of 9, 5 results out of 9, with three draws and abandonment in this round, which is actually quite a lot of results for any championship round, whatever ball you're using. So I thought that showed progress, and I thought it showed that if this is going to be part of the summer, and I know there are some who don't like it because of the what Gareth Batty's talked about, sort of the lack of integrity of changing ball midway through the season. I don't know if I completely subscribe to that, but I think if you're going to, if it's going to be part of the summer, and then I don't know. I think what we saw in this round shows. I think highlights why it doesn't work at the start of the season for best practice, but also when it can work really well. And look, England are going on a winter tour. England generally go on winter tours and generally go to the subcontinent as part of those at some stage. And actually, if you can hold a couple of rounds with a ball that really brings the spinners into play at a time of the season when you can at least hope that you can have some dry weather and some dry pitches about. I don't know, that feels to me like a fairly worthwhile exercise. And Jack Leach was asked after the game how he thought about the Pakistan series coming up, wherever that's going to be held, whether and how he's feeling around that. And actually, we've ended up in a situation there when the spinners you listed, Don Bess has played for England, Jack Leach was England's first choice spinner till recently. Jack Carson is a regular on Lions tours. Will Jacks was part of the England squad last time they went to Pakistan. And Maverdi 3 years ago was part of the England squad that went to India. So actually, it's not just supporting spinners, but has supported spinners who have at different times been on England's radar. So, have you just
cancelled the Pakistan-England test, or you said wherever that may be held? Have you got an exclusive that I'm unaware of?
It's not exclusive, but you are unaware of it. There's certainly some uncertainty about where that's going to be held, whether it's going to be in Pakistan or the UAE or elsewhere.
I think you're breaking news here.
I'm not.
Anyway, I need to refocus. Because if it goes to the UAE, that's at the same time as the Women's World Cup. So that's all types of things going on. Right. But basically, because Rob Key has said kind of, I think half tongue in cheek, like he'd love to see the whole league played to the Kookaburra, because basically in the movement towards kind of forcing 70-mile-an-hour seamers into extinction. What are the plans for next year? Is this something that's here to stay? Or is this something that we gave it a go as a result of England getting absolutely battered in the Ashes in 21-22, and it was like the kind of high performance review? Or is this, is the trial done, or is this something we're going to have to get used to?
I guess the trial's done in that this has been a trial to get it tested at different parts of summer. I'd be amazed if there is no Kookaburra cricket next year. I'd actually be quite surprised if there's not more Kookaburra cricket next year than there is this year. And I know that won't be popular. There's certainly been some whispers that there'll be a slight increase. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know if I'd be completely in favour of that. I think playing a couple of rounds here and a couple of rounds there is not the worst thing in the world. I'd go as far as says that I quite like the variety. I can see why. I wouldn't have had it. I wouldn't have had it straight off. I wouldn't have had it. I think one of the risks of having it now is you have it after the hundreds and this big break in red ball cricket. And if we're talking boring load perspective stuff for bowlers, you do risk being in a position where you're throwing bowlers who've not done more than an hour and a half on the field for the last month and a half out onto a field and saying you might have to do 2 days here. And actually, if your whole body's been geared towards bowling 4 sets of 5 for the last, say, since the start of July, I'm not sure how healthy that is.
But that's the same with any red ball, isn't it? Like, yes, the Kookaburra you might be bowling a bit more, but
Well, but it's that bit, isn't it? You might bowl a bit more. Like no, but let's say I'm not. I think this is a really good time of the year to do it if you can do it, and it's been proven so by the way the games went. Poor old Dan Moriarty bowled 64 wicketless overs for Yorkshire.
Is there going to be more or less of it next year? Do we know?
Well, I sat on the fence. I said I'd be surprised if there's less, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's more. But
amazing, sweet. We'll take that. Thank you very much, Nick. And also for the record,
if you could unwedge me from my fence, then
yeah, wonderful. I also, for the record, in terms of me being so silly, we're recording this on a Thursday, the 5th of September. You didn't know that the Pakistan tour might be getting moved. The Cricketer reported this less than 2 hours ago. 58 minutes ago was the first time that the Cricketer put a piece out about this, as far as I'm aware. So, hey, breaking news here on the Cricketer County Conversation, and from George DeBell writing from the ground at the Oval. Right, moving on to Farhan Ahmed. Now, Farhan Ahmed, for those who aren't aware, is the 16-year-old younger brother of Rayan Ahmed. Rayan Ahmed, of course, is of Leicestershire's parish. He became the youngest ever men's Test cricketer for England in 2022 when he played against Pakistan. Basically, they've got a stupidly talented family, and his younger brother, the 16-year-old Farhan, who earlier this year had already played for England under 19s. He played second 11 county cricket for Nottinghamshire when he was 14. He'd played in the One Day Cup, and then he's got given the nod in the Red Bull stuff to play against Surrey at Trent Bridge. Yes.
He also played against Sri Lanka and
played against Sri Lanka in the Lions. But he got given the nod in the county championship. I know it's
the one that matters.
The one that matters. He's actually got picked for like a league game. Congratulations. Anyway, he has come out the other side with figures of 10 for 247, and he has become the youngest cricketer to ever take a 10-wicket haul in a match since, breaking W.G. Grace's record. And W.G. Grace is part of me just refuses to believe he exists, because he's just this kind of mythical figure from the 19th century, which, anyway, doesn't matter. He got 7 for 140 in the first innings, 3 for 77 in the second innings, 76 overs across the match, and he bowled across the entirety of Surrey's second innings with Liam Patterson-White. I think he's amazing. And the reason I think he's amazing isn't necessarily just because he's being picked by Nottinghamshire now, but I remember, and I wish I'd backed myself here, I remember seeing a clip of him bowling for England under 19s on NV Play. And he basically, it's not a dooster, but he kind of like flicks the ball out of his hand and kind of bowls this big like arm ball, like in swinger to a left-hander and clean bowls him. And it was such a skillful piece of bowling and such a kind of modern day piece of bowling in the extent of, this kid's an offie. What makes him special? It's stuff like that, basically, which is setting him aside. Do you have anything you wish to say on Farhan Ahmed, or would you like us to cue in the conversation we're about to bring to the listeners with Paul Franks, who is his coach at Nottinghamshire and knows him very well? He's going to explain to us just why and how good he is.
I think we cue Paul.
You want to cue Paul? Perfect. Here's Paul Franks of Nottinghamshire and Nick Friend.
So thanks for joining us. I guess the first thing I want to ask you, I think I'm around saying you were at Notts when a very young Bilal Shafayat was coming through as well. So you've sort of seen it before, I guess, with a teenager coming through. I don't know, how does it work? How easy is it to throw someone in there when they're that young?
It's a very good question. How does it work? I don't think there's an exact science to it. I think it helps if you know the person first. And knowing, I grew up with Bilal. He's a couple of years younger than me, which you won't mind me saying. And so we'd sort of known of each other through the age groups. So by the time I was 21, he was, like you say, 16, 17, and making waves through age group cricket. And he had a charisma and a confidence that at whatever level he played at, he believed he was good enough. He believed he was good enough to go out there and compete and show everybody how good he was. And he brought that with him the first time he came into the first team dressing room, which was really, really refreshing. You don't often see that from your standard age group player comes into a first team environment, and understandably they do as they're told. They sort of sit and wait to be told what to do, and then they try and do their bit from there. But one thing I would say about Bilal was that he was there to play right from that very first game. And the best thing I can say about Farhan was that Farhan, who is the youngest of three, and I've been lucky enough to observe Farhan since he was a very young boy, training in the nets over in the Radcliffe Road stands since he was probably 10 years old, with his siblings who were, at that stage, Rehan would have been 12 turning 13 and Raheem would have been 14 turning 15. So we had a handle on the fact that Farhan was making really good progress as a young cricketer. And he managed to do that throughout the age groups, which was exciting for everybody. And we knew what we were getting. So we knew him. We knew that he was growing up with elder siblings, which is always handy because they have to grow up quick, don't they? So that was exciting to see.
Because even, I remember playing county age group cricket to 17, and you get guys who are 16 then who you look at and go, they're really promising, but they look like really good players at the time. But they might be club 13ers by the time they're 21, 22. What is it? You say you could see even when he was 10 that he, had talent. What is it? What is it that you see? If that makes sense, is it a tangible thing or is it the? I don't know,
Is it tangible? It's a very good question. Yeah, ultimately, you watch how their cricket maturity is and how they handle themselves against their peers. So in the space where I first remember seeing Farhan, he was training with his dad, his two brothers, and a family friend. And I watched them practice and I thought, he doesn't look very old, but he's old. But he's old beyond his years. If you're watching him and you're watching a boy practice against slightly older boys and grown men, and I'm thinking he's holding his own here. He's doing things that you wouldn't expect a normal 10-year-old to be doing. He was effectively doing the stuff that a 14-year-old would be doing. So he's always been wise beyond his years, if you pardon the cliche. But he's had the ability to compete with his elders all the way through his development. He's played adult cricket in the Nottinghamshire Premier League, and since he was probably 12 or 13 in the best team in the competition and held down a position on merit. And credit to them, they've given him responsibility within that team. And the Cavaliers deserve an enormous amount of credit for the exposure that they've given to him within that setup for him to grow up at the speed he has grown up. And the fact that he has been mature enough and intelligent enough, both as a young man and as a cricketer, to accept the responsibility that they've given him is an enormous amount of credit to himself.
How I was going to say, how's he taken to it? But because he's had even the last couple of months have been from the One Day Cup through to the Lions opportunity, then go back play a second team game, then coming in for the game last week again against Surrey, where where he broke records, didn't he? How is it for him? Is that just another game of cricket? Is that what you say there about what he's done at club level? Is that almost one of his biggest skills, that you're 16-year-old kid who's kind of just taking it in his stride, treating it as any old game?
Exactly. I think that's exactly it, Nick. I feel like he's, ever since he came into the second 11 environment, he's effectively been advising us on how he wants to be looked after, because we haven't tried to overcoach him. Certainly in that environment, we haven't anyway. We've allowed him just to be. He loves to compete. He wants to be the guy that's got the ball in his hand, and he wants to be the player in the game. So just by letting him play the game, he's learning a lot really quickly. And we've tried really hard to let him lead us, which it says a lot for somebody who's 16, right? Like the danger would be that we're talking about how he holds the ball, or how he holds the bat, or how we want him to stand, or we would be looking for something technical to lean on.
Yeah,
because he's very, very consistent in a lot of things within his own game at the minute. We're just letting him as a young man guide us a little bit, and all I'm sort of looking out for is any little bits that may change when he comes into the first team environment. So they're more behaviour related, they are more attitude related, and or then how he carries himself around any scrutiny that might come his way. Obviously, there's been a lot of noise around his performance in the last crikey since this time last year when he was first, being talked about as an England under-19 international, and then he gets selected for the World Cup, and he does well in the World Cup. And I was fortunate enough to work with him in that space, so I got to see him again in a different environment to the one we used to seeing him at Notts. And the roles and responsibilities he took there were really impressive to see. But he didn't change as a bloke. And he is a young man, but there's a maturity to him that's really quite refreshing for someone of his age. And his consistency with how he does his things are really quite impressive. Like I watched him practice this morning at Trent Bridge, and he could have been bowling at another 16-year-old, but he wasn't. He was bowling at first team practice, and he was diligent, and he asks questions, and he talks about the game, and he's engaged in a way that makes you think this lad's slightly cut from a different cloth, if you know what I mean. Like he thinks about the game a different way to other 16-year-olds.
With all that said, go ahead of the Surrey game, how is there that bit of you that's like, I hope, because I don't know, I guess you can watch someone train and you can watch someone, go about, I guess maybe this is sort of pre-Lions game rather than pre-Surrey game, but is there a bit of you that's like, that suddenly remembers that he's 16? Do you know what I mean? Like that, was there, I don't know, how, presumably you had total confidence that he was going to produce, that he'd be able to slip in seamlessly.
Yeah, you weren't to know whether
he was phrase that right.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. You weren't to know that he was going to take 10 wickets in the game. Like I say, that was very much an exceeding of expectation against the county champions. Yeah. And there are lots of challenges that the game's going to present him in due course, and that's fine. Everybody goes on that journey. The one thing I would say about how, when you talk about his age, I remember having a chat last year with Mike Yardy when Mike Yardy was first taking Farhan seriously as a contender for the England under-19s team. And we were at Worksop College playing a not second 11 game, and Farhan was playing. And he asked me about Farhan, and we chatted away and we talked about his game, and Yards asked me some really, really, really poignant questions. And I said, well, the one thing I'd like us to do, and one thing I'm trying really hard to do, is forget about how old he is to a certain point and just judge him on his cricket. Because there's going to be time when we'll stop talking about how old he is, and we'll just judge him based on what you find and is he good enough against his peers. So you know that he's available for the under-19s. I now know he's available to play for Nottinghamshire, first team, second 11, in whatever format we want to pick him. And it becomes less of a story then. If I as a team of coaches, and we as a team of coaches, look at it and say, right, okay, we're judging him against everybody else. He's left school, he's playing cricket. Where does he sit against everybody else? And that to me keeps it simpler in my mind. I've never had to put him in a session where I've had to remind myself that he's only 15 or 16 or whatever he's been. I've never been in a place where I think, I've got to back off a little bit here because of his age, or I've got to try and move the session to a place where I make it easier for him. There's been none of that, and that's testament to the skill he's got.
And is that how you take things going forward as well? Like, is there a management? I know he's not a 6'5" quick, I guess, which presumably helps in some capacity there. But I don't know. Like, how do you have to manage him differently going forward because of his age, or do you say, or as you say there, but because you know how good he is and what he can do and the skill set he's got? Is he now just one of the group and pick as and when works?
Yeah, I think around a lot of it will be conditions based a little bit as well, because of how we use spin in the UK is subtly different to other parts of the world because of weather conditions and pitch conditions and various bits and bobs.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot more to come from him with his all-round game, and the development of his batting is going to be a massive part of his journey. That's something he's aware of.
Where is he with the bat at the moment, would you say? Like in terms of, not the moment, like potential-wise, like, is he?
I think he's
going middle order, or?
Yeah, I think he's going to be a really good all-rounder. And I think it's just exposure. I think if you put him in an age group team with guys of his age, he'd dominate. You put him in an under-16s game, and you'd watch him go out there and play really, really well. Now, understandably, at the minute, that feels like a different challenge because of what's happening, and he's got some questions to answer to make that step into first class batting standards that he wants to reach. And he's not oblivious to it. He's not kidding himself. He knows he's got work to do there. But I think he's got massive potential to be a really good all-round cricketer.
And can I ask, just finally for you? I mean, you say you've sort of seen him since he was 10. I mean, how don't know, how proud are you? How cool's it been to watch this? I mean, because 6 years from it's mad, isn't it? Like 6 years from being 10-year-old to this point is a lot of time, but also not a lot of time at all. Yeah, I don't know. Like just from a coach's, mentor's perspective, what's it been like to sort of follow this journey?
Yeah, look, it's been great. One thing I've had complete faith in is the places he's been playing his cricket. He's been getting some excellent opportunity. So he's played, like I say, the Cavaliers and the wider club at Carrington deserve an enormous amount of credit. Our age group system deserves an enormous amount of credit because it's gone hand in hand to allow him to feel like he's going to go where he wants to go. And I watch him and I watch others developing, and I think that's a massive part of bringing players through the age group system, is trying to get everything working seamlessly is a real challenge with club and county and potentially school or whoever it is trying to get everything working together to give the player the best chance. And I feel like we've done that really well for him, and it's a really, really good system that we should look to imply with a lot of our best younger players.
Thank you very much to Paul Franks for talking us through the wonders that are Farhan Ahmed and what we have to look forward to. I would love it so much if he broke his brother's record for the youngest ever men's Test cricketer for England. I know you're not meant to pump up kind of children basically and kind of get people overexcited about them and say they're amazing and then kind of overinflate their sense of expectation and hopes for the future. But it's too late. Both Ahmeds playing Test cricket together for England within the next 48 hours, please. It's possible. Right, we're moving on to Gloucestershire versus Northants. Gloucestershire versus Northants, it was match abandoned, Nick. They had to cancel the game due to a dangerous pitch. And it looked a bit strange. It was a bit of a strange situation. Gloucestershire are playing on a hybrid wicket, which is one they used, a surface style that they used for an earlier round of Kookaburra cricket. The idea is that the hybrids have actually been quite successful. They've provided a bit of pace into the wicket, and with Gloucestershire's quick bowlers down there, it's been a nice recipe, a nice combination. In this match, Gloucestershire had been bundled out for 125 in just 36 overs. Justin Broad, spare a thought for him. He claimed a career best of 7 for, and then the match got cancelled for being too dangerous. So he just has a massive asterisk against his kind of career best figures forever now, potentially. And Northants were 116 for 2 when the match was called off after Rob Keogh was struck in the glove. This was after Vasconcelos had also been struck in the gloves a couple of times. They think he had, as of last week, it was a suspected broken finger. He might have broken his finger, basically. Or maybe he did. Who knows? How's his fingers? Haven't seen the x-ray. The club put out a statement. Anyway, the club put out a statement. Whilst we acknowledge that this is not something anyone would have wanted to happen, we need to see, understand, and discuss the match referee's report before making further comments on the decision. This is Gloucestershire speaking. We expect there will be an ECB investigation, and we will, of course, assist them at all stages of that investigation. Kind of a week on, you have ties to Gloucestershire, both official and unofficial. What is the feeling like? Kind of why did this happen? Was this a disaster, or was this a kind of unfortunate series of events?
I think you'd call it like a perfect storm of issues for a start. Like you touched on the hybrids, and obviously this is the Kookaburra round as well. So you've got at source you've got two experiments colliding. You've got a Kookaburra round where basically the ECB, English cricket, is saying to the counties, 2 rounds, different ball. We know it doesn't do very much. You're all playing for wins. No one wants a high-scoring draw at this stage of the season. Doesn't really help anyone. 5 games to go, running. So knock yourselves out. Find a way of producing a result. In a lot of cases, that's been producing spinning decks. In Gloucestershire's case, as early this season when they played Middlesex on hybrids in the game I was at, it was a really, really good game. And it wasn't so much. It wasn't just the pace he mentioned. It was also the bounce. And a lot of guys were hit on the glove in that game, but there were also quite a lot of runs scored. And at the end of the game, both coaches, both captains said what a good game of cricket it was, and actually how good an idea this was, and how they hoped that more teams would opt for the hybrids in Championship cricket. The reason the hybrid is the hybrids this year is in a 1-year trial essentially for county championship cricket. It's been used. It's been allowed to be used previously in white ball cricket, but this was the first year being allowed in first class cricket, essentially on a trial basis, and mainly to help out counties with fixturing congestion, particularly around this time of the year. I actually don't know whether it was used at Bristol in this round because of fixed congestion or because it worked so well as a strategic move last time round. But either way, they used it with the Kookaburra. Let's say it's a lot of unknowns coming together. There's very. I know it was day one, but there's very little data out there for how a hybrid plays over multi-day cricket. And there's even less data over how a hybrid's going to. And sorry, there's the same amount of data therefore around how a hybrid plays with a red ball, and even less data around how a hybrid plays with the Kookaburra ball. So at source, so point one, you've got this perfect storm of 2 experiments sort of coming together to produce this game. As I say, those two, that same perfect storm created the game against Middlesex early this season. I wrote quite extensively about afterwards actually, because I thought around all the talk, amid all the talk around the ball, actually this was really, it was sort of like a rare success in those early rounds for the Kookaburra, in that counts had found a way of producing something that was genuinely quite interesting to watch, and it kept the fast bowlers involved, and actually kept the fast bowlers involved in a way that counted in a way that England cricket wanted to see its fast bowlers involved. Pace, bounce, wickets that weren't nibbling around, did all the right things. Now, this game specifically is the Northlands game is interesting. The general consensus I get is that this was dodgy, not dangerous. I've not heard anyone say this was a magnificent pitch, but myself, you, I'm sure a lot of people listening, county cricket supporters, will have watched cricket played on poor, dangerous county surfaces. I would say often at outgrounds, where I've seen and watching Cam Steele get hit flush in the face off a length by Umesh Yadav at Radley a couple of years ago in a one-day cup game. And I remember the next week watching Sam Robson get hit in the face off a similar length at the same ground in the same competition. And I sat there and watched both games to the end. Now that particular Steele one was dangerous. That was absolutely dangerous. Umesh Yadav, who's veteran of however many India caps, well built, 6 foot plus, quick, banging it in on a length and hitting someone slap in the face. Now that game was played to its conclusion. That was dangerous. I struggle with guys being hit on the glove on a pitch that, yes, is going to carry extra bounce, because that's kind of what the hybrid does. Ricardo Vasconcelos, Graham Van Buren, neither two of the tallest players on the circuit, both hit on the glove, as was Rob Keogh. As I say, I don't think anyone's saying it was a great surface, but I do know that everyone was surprised when there was no sense that this was that the players were about to walk off if someone was hit on the glove. So I think I feel for kind of all involved. Northants were well ahead in the game. Gloucestershire were well behind the game, but knew this was a game they had to win to sort of keep in touch with the top two, top three in Division 2. So Northants will feel like they've missed out on a lot of points that they'd got for a win, and potential batting bonus points as well. They're 120 odd for 2, effectively 3 with Vasconcelos' finger. And then Gloucester got walked away with 0 points from a home game. That said, they were well behind him, but who knows? They might have won it. So no one wins with an abandonment. I would hope that draw. Indeed, I would hope that this is where it ends. Like as an investigation, I hope what I've summarised there in terms of circumstance are such that there doesn't need to be sanction on top of what's happened. You called the game off, didn't think it was safe. I wasn't there, so you don't want to be critical of the officials. You wonder whether you wonder whether sort of like inexperienced officials are more experienced officials would play it differently, but who knows? And it's hard, and it is tough because you are told that your job is to keep everyone safe. Sure. But the issue with a multi-day game and the issue with taking players off for a dangerous pitch at all is that you can't go back on. Once it's dangerous, right? Like, what you do? Stick an astro on top of it.
I think that is an interesting point as well in terms of, in the context of it being a hybrid pitch, these wickets are basically designed to hopefully give counties some breathing room and be a kind of, in the long term, a cheaper, easier option to be able to play lots of cricket and kind of save whatever. And if in the early stages there's already been a match that's gone, this has been called off, this was an unfit surface, what does that mean for the future of hybrid pitches? Why was it dangerous because it was a hybrid pitch? And if so, what was the factors that made it kind of at play? And people just don't really know.
Yeah, I mean, I'd hope that I'd really hope this doesn't I'd hope that doesn't curtail the hybrid experiment. Say, the game I watched earlier this season was honestly one of the best games of county cricket I've seen this season, and that was largely because of the surface. And look, where I struggle with this game as well is this wasn't called off after 10 balls, and that does happen when you see a dangerous surface. A couple of balls early on the match go up and down, and then you're like, oh no, here we go. This is a game called off in its second innings, right? One team's batted on it already.
But they have got absolutely rolled.
They have, but they've been rolled, but they've not been rolled because of people aren't getting balls that go underground. People aren't being splicing balls to short leg. It's I think Gloucestershire have a much quicker attack than the Northants. They've also got probably Ajit Singh Dale apart, a much taller attack than most. Certainly with Dom Goodman 6'6", Zumatta's not much shorter. I think it's a tough one.
What we're saying is, it was tall bowlers versus short batters, and that was the actual issue
on a bouncy hybrid pitch. And I'm not convinced. I'm not totally convinced of the danger of it. But as I said, that's when I compare it to games I've watched and gone, that is dangerous. I don't know how they're still playing, or I'm surprised they're still playing. So
right. Moving on with the county championship, just give a little bit of an overview, and I'm going to ask Nick some predictions to kind of round off the show. To begin with Division 2, Jack Carson has got 19 wickets in his last 2 matches and is all of a sudden kind of the leading wicket taker in Division 2. As a result, they've had 2 very good results. Sussex have opened up a bit of a lead at the top, and then Middlesex and Yorkshire are second and third, separated by just 1 point. Glamorgan, or more to the point, Colin Ingram for Glamorgan. He won the race to 1,000 runs in the county championship, which I don't think many people have had him on their kind of bingo card as the potential winner for that. He got a career best double century to take him past that landmark. And in Division 1, I things are really beginning to like heat up quite nicely. Obviously, Surrey have been the kind of leading side, and until last week, you'd argue, you'd think that Essex are kind of the main challengers. When Surrey and Essex played the match at the Oval earlier this year, it was a big event. It was kind of a case of like, goodness me, this is really important for the context of the season. Surrey and Essex are playing at Chelmsford last day of the season. It was all set up for a blockbuster in that direction. No. Essex have fallen away. They lost quite dramatically to Worcestershire by 40 runs, failing to chase 180. And as a result, with a Somerset win and a Surrey draw, Somerset are now 24 points behind Surrey. Somerset host Surrey next week. And yes, a win for Surrey, so a win for Somerset wouldn't mean that they go first, but it'll basically mean they close the gap to bonus point territory. That's all very exciting. A strange thing, or something that's worth noting, Surrey next week are going to be without all their England players. So because of the timing of the fixture, none of the Test lads are going to be available, and none of the white ball lads are going to be available. So Gus Atkinson, Jamie Smith, Will Jack, Sam Curran, all those guys can't play. It has been reported in numerous outlets that Surrey are going to sign Shakib Al Hassan for one match and one match only for this Somerset game. Now, I'm going to shock you here, Nick. I'm not a world-leading expert on the state of Bangladeshi politics, geopolitics, and general civil unrest. But that is what's been going on in Bangladesh recently. It's been a very dramatic and tragic situation. And Shakib Al Hassan is, or was, an MP in the previous government. And basically what's happened is he is currently on a murder charge. Now, it's not as clear-cut as a case that he's the only person who's charged. He's one of 140 people who have been charged. If you read Tawid Qureshi, who is a cricket journalist with Bangladeshi heritage and very across all these things, he wrote, basically explained, like, yes, these charges are spurious in that Shakib Al Hassan was in Canada at the time that the alleged murder of a kind of student protester happened. So he's not involved, but nevertheless, I'm very happy to say I don't understand the kind of depths of the situation, and I would be surprised if Surrey were across the depths of the situation. And basically what's happening is Shakib Al Hassan is currently playing in Pakistan in the Test series. Then rather than going back to Bangladesh, this fixture allows him to remain out of the country for a little while longer. If I was Surrey, and I'm not, I'm surprised they're going to be interested in having those headlines for a week if that match does go ahead, because very simply, it's a bit of a news story. It'll be on BBC Sports. It'll say Surrey sign Bangladesh star who's currently on a murder charge, and people go, "What on earth's going on here?" And the nuance and the caveats and the kind of depths and how confusing a situation it is will not potentially properly be people be aware of. What are your thoughts on you got any light tidbits you want to add to that situation?
I think you've covered it.
Perfect. Would you rather if I asked you about who you think is going to win Div 2?
You've covered it better than I could, to be fair. And it's not been confirmed he's joined, is it? But
it has not been confirmed. But yeah, situation to keep an eye on. There we go. Right. In terms of predictions, though, to about turn from one serious cricket thing to, well, I guess where people finish in the table is quite a serious cricket thing. We play the sport after all. I want you to give me a prediction for the Somerset Surrey game to begin with. Basically, if Surrey win that's it. That's it, curtains. And then can you also tell me who you think is going to be joining Kent in the relegation to Division 2?
Surrey v Somerset will be interesting. Cook my ball, Taunton, spin. It's
Jack Leach against Durham.
Takes back to 2019 a bit, doesn't it? And the old and all the controversies around turning pitches and such things. But given the need for Somerset to win that game, to sort of turn it back into a race, where they're sort of a full round behind, aren't they, in the points table at the moment? You'd be surprised if it wasn't the surface that encourages spin, but equally, Somerset are playing really well for a start. Got a lot of batting form, and will be much closer to full strength than Surrey. I wouldn't be at all surprised if they can turn them over there, which makes it a really exciting last sort of fortnight in the table. Well, that said, if Shakib Al-Hassan is playing for Surrey, then Surrey would have Kemar Roach and Shakib Al-Hassan.
Very good.
It's still a fantastic spine. Rory Burns isn't going to. Rory Burns is in brilliant nick at the moment. Dom Sibley likewise. Ben Folkes keeping wicket up the stumps, and potentially turning pitch. Like, there's still a lot going for Surrey to be very, very strong. And of course, the reason they've got such a deep squad is because they lose players in situations like this. So, how different is it from early season when they lose a lot of players to the IPL? I guess sort of time will tell. But
you just give me a winner.
Draw.
Brilliant. On the fence again, right. And currently at the bottom of the table, Kent are all but gone. Lancashire are 9th on 106 points. Nottinghamshire 8th on 116. Durham and Warwickshire a bit further ahead on 130. Durham and Warwickshire and Worcestershire could feed it through, actually get dragged into it. But who do you think are most likely to join them down the bottom?
Well, I think Lancs and Notts have just been in free fall a bit, haven't they? As the season's worn on. It's a tough one. I think Notts might just have a bit more. To them, a bit more. I don't know, a bit more to the two of them at the moment. But then, to say it is so tight, you've only got to look at what's happened to Worcester in the last couple of weeks. Everyone thought they were gone. They've won 3 games in a row. The top 5, they are doing extraordinary things. Given the year they've had, the injuries they've had, the adversity, the tragedy, to go and win at Essex and to completely muck up their title charge as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also to do that from the position of 10 for 4 on the first morning after winning the toss and choosing to bat.
Genuinely remarkable win.
And they took a catch at short mid-on, which only happens once every 100 years. So,
WG Grace, it was the first catch at short mid-on since WG
Well, it was
Grace.
The punter, wasn't it? It was when England were at Brisbane. You'll know that. You must know this anecdote. England were at Brisbane in 2011 or 2010-11 when they were 500 for 1, and one of the Aussie fan and Ricky Ponting stuck a man at short mid-on. And one of the fans went, "Great thinking, punter. There's not been a catch there for 100 years. We're due one now." So I hope someone did that to Brett D'Oliveira.
Very good.
And then he took the catch.
Good. I think I'll massively agree with you. I think Lancashire, they've lost their last 2 matches by an innings. They are not in the best shape at the moment. And then I want you to very, very, very quickly, I'm going to give you 30 seconds maximum here. Tell me, who do you think out of Middlesex and Yorkshire, again, potentially, maybe Leicestershire sneaking in there, are going to make it to the top to be promoted? Sussex, they're a game ahead, so they should back themselves to get there.
I think Yorkshire, so there's a 1 point gap at the moment. Yorkshire picked up several more bonus points than Middlesex have this season, and Middlesex go to Sussex in the last round of games, and Yorkshire have Johnny Bairstow still with them. I think the stars are somewhat aligning for Yorkshire to overhaul Middlesex. Although if Sussex are already home and hosed, then they might literally be on the beach come Hove in late September. And Middlesex also go to Derbyshire, who are bottom of Div 2. So, but I would marginally go Yorkshire, I think, at the moment.
Perfect. Right, that has been this week's County Conversation. If you have been enjoying the Cricketers' coverage of the County Championship, be sure to sign up to coverage of all 18 teams online for as little as £3.99 a month. Nick, you know it by now, but the Cricketer have won the ECB's Outstanding Online Coverage of Domestic Cricket Award for the last 6 years in a row. You don't just have to take our word for it. Links to the relevant buttons and subscriptions will be in the show notes, so click on those, follow along. Follow Nick Friend on Twitter. Don't follow me. We'll see you and speak to you next week. Goodbye.